how do you systematically approach studying poker, like from a engineer mindset?
Sure. So like I said, I like to deconstruct a topic. So for example, what I do, I save all the hand histories online where I have a question where I'm not sure, right? And I put them in categories. And after a month, I look at which folder has the most hand histories, right? If it's 5-bet spots and I have one hand per year, I don't really care. I'm not going to go into that in depth. But then there's BVB. Maybe last month I had 20. Then I'm like, okay, this is really a spot where I have a lot of uncertainties. And so I'm going to tackle BVB limp pot. And yeah, I really like to have a global overview, frequencies, then I go in depth, strategies, then I go in depth, simplifications, I look at exploits. And so I'm basically going to spend maybe 2 weeks just doing BVB because I really want to kind of finish that topic before moving on.
So you kind of use your own uncertainty in a spot as kind of a compass towards what you have to put work in.
Yes, I do either that or what I've done. For example, we did a map with a friend, Kenny Hollart. We did a map of what nodes impact the win rate and in which fashion. So basically, we had 3-bet pots, BVB, single race pot, everything you can think of. And then we took a big database and we kind of looked, okay, 3-bet pots, they involve that many big blind, over time. BVB, that many big blind on the flop, etc., etc. And then you cross that with the frequency of the spots, right? Single race pot, small pots, but very frequent, blah, blah, blah. We crossed everything. And the answer was basically how much does that node impact your win rate? Is it a lot? Is it medium? Is it not at all? Like I mentioned, 6-bet pots. The pots are giant, but it never happens, so it doesn't impact your win rate at all, right? And so basically we did that, and then I just prioritize, okay, I'm just gonna tackle what impacts my win rate the most. That's where I want to get really good. Then I went second layer, what impacts the win rate, like, in a medium fashion, and I probably never got to the small stuff.
No 6-bet pots.
No 6-bet pot. I'm a fish. I'm a 6-bet pot.
Actually, it's very similar. We had a podcast with Patrick Howard, and I think we talked similar, like in a similar fashion, and we talked about textures, and then we talked about monoboards, and then I asked him a question about it. He said, "I don't know, and I don't care. It never happens."
Yeah.
Which I thought was a good answer. Like in cash games, like I use a very, very similar approach: frequency of spots, pot size. What you mentioned, like your own skill level, is definitely a variable to take in consideration.
Oof.
I think also the skill level of your opponent's a very interesting one. So in general, it's worth putting more time into a spot where on average the population leaks the most, because basically then your return of investment of putting time in that spot, because you can come up with better exploits, there's more to gain. So there's like a couple of variables here. Obviously in cash it's a bit easier because it's always the same. How do you then measure in phases of the tournament?
Yeah, that's definitely complex. I think that was a good analogy, a good example you gave. For example, recently I started to work way more on post-flop ICM, and that's kind of a new topic. It's kind of a new world that opened to us recently with solvers being super fast, and we can now really study that part of the game efficiently. But that's clearly a topic where if you watch streams, even high stakes, you see people doing a lot of stuff. Nobody knows if it's good. And that's kind of what you're mentioning, right? If you put 20 hours there, you're going to become the best ICM post-flop player in the world, honestly. Like, I'm oversimplifying, but that's a little bit how it feels right now. In 1 year, it's going to be different, of course. So yeah, that's a good way to also, I think, direct or study, or at least I think it's a really rewarding one. Because like you mentioned, you end up having a big edge after 20 hours of study. Whereas if you want to have a big edge in single race pot versus big blind, you have to put, 100.
I remember we also did a podcast with Jans Grafdekkel, and I think he mentioned 80% of his study is pre-flop and ICM, because he says that's like where pre-flop is going to be
everything
by far the most
starts,
frequent, right? And ICM is going to have the biggest impact in terms of on your win rate. Would you say your study ratio is similar?
No, I don't think so. I don't do so much pre-flop. And yeah, I'm more of a post-flop studier, if you might say. I do ICM, of course. So maybe something like 20% pre-flop, 40% ICM, including post-flop, and 40% post-flop GPV.